What's up, everyone? Eli here, back for a collection update video. I'm going to call it Tales from the Dollar Bin because almost everything I'm going to show you, I actually got out of a literal dollar bin at one of my local stores. Yeah, it's a store that I go to somewhat frequently. They do have like a discount rack, but it's usually not marked down to $1. Usually it's $3 or $4. For some reason they had everything. They must really want this junk gone because everything was marked down to $1. I kind of bought everything out of it that was metal, other than like some Dawkins CDs and shit like that. But anyways, what we're listening to is Arckanum self-titled tape, special edition, the 11-year anniversary album. Why 11 years? I have no fucking clue. But anyways, this tape was put out by Oniric Records out of Spain. Very nice. I have these in my distro. I just listed them recently. Very cool tape. Stickers there. And yeah, there's a bunch of unreleased stuff on here. Shit like that. Very nice J-card. Oniric does a really good job. Pretty much always. So I'm sure most of you, if not all of you, are familiar with Arckanum. Black metal out of Sweden. Been around since the early to mid 90s. Very consistent one-man band. I've yet to hear anything from this guy that I didn't like. Some of it's better, some of the albums are better than, some of the others, but it's all really fucking good. Definitely top tier Swedish black metal. So if you want a copy, got them in my distro, come get one. And anyways, yeah, move on to the video here. Like I haven't been already doing the video. Anyways, yeah, so not all of these were $1, but fuck, man, most of them were. So I should have had them separated already. I apologize about that. And yeah, that's all I really need to do. So let's get going. A lot of these I've heard, some I haven't. March of the Saint, Armored Saint. I've been after this one for a while. Not like I've been seeking it out. I could have got it on Discogs fucking forever ago. But yeah, I like Armored Saint. I'm not the biggest fan, but I do like their first couple releases. And yeah, this is their debut album for what, 1984? Yeah, 1984. If you don't know a lot about Armored Saint, you might not be an old school metal guy, but Armored Saint were a heavy metal band, just kind of street level, traditional metal out of LA. John Bush was their singer, who would go on. He's always been an Armored Saint, but in the early '90s, he went on to join Anthrax for a good, I think, 3 or 4 albums, to varying success, I guess you could say. I really fucking like The Sound of White Noise, which was the first album he did with them. That's actually one of my favorite albums of all time, which is weird, but it is. And then the rest of the stuff he did with them is in my opinion, kind of hit and miss. It's certainly not bad. It's 90s thrash. What can you really expect? So, anyways, check out Sound of White Noise. I don't know if you've never heard it. Check it out, man. I think it's great. You're probably not going to have the same nostalgia that I have with it, but yeah. Moving on to another later Armored Saint album. I think this is from like 98. 2000 actually. I could have sworn this came out in 98. I don't know. You never know. But anyways, this is Revelation. I actually used to own this fucker. Once again, I guess, I don't really remember it. I guess when I did that big purge some 10 years ago or whatever, I must have got rid of this one. But it's a good album. I always liked it. I don't know why I would have gotten rid of it. It's not the best Armored Saint album, but it's certainly not bad. It's been a long time since I've heard it, so I can't say a whole lot else about it. But I got to listen to it soon, kind of get reacquainted. Also got a couple Rainbow albums. I've been kind of trying to complete the Rainbow discography, and I think I have this one on vinyl. I don't remember for sure, but I might. We got Difficult to Cure. This is one of the albums with Joe Lynn Turner on vocals, 1981. Check out the album, or check out the song "Spotlight Kid." Fucking killer track. One of the best Rainbow songs ever. it can hold its own with like the Dio era stuff. But yeah, difficult to cure. Jolyn Turner's an amazing singer. I think this might be, and don't quote me because I'm not an expert on Rainbow, but I think this might be the first album after Ronnie James Dio left. I could be completely wrong on that. Shit, you know what? I think the album with Graham Bonnet actually is I think Graham Bonnet replaced Dio. I don't know. What do you guys think? Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, I love the story about how Dio left Rainbow. Basically, Richie Blackmore comes up to him and he's like, "All right, Ronnie. So the next album, I want to be a little bit more pop oriented. I want to go in a more poppy direction." And Dio was like, "Fuck that, I'm gone," and he left just for that very reason. What a badass. That's just a cool story, man. And another Jolyn Turner Rainbow release. This is from '82, so the year right after that. It's Straight Between the Eyes. I don't like this one as much as Difficult to Cure, but it's still really good. All the '80s and '70s Rainbow stuff is, in my opinion, great and worth owning. That last Difficult to Cure that I just showed you, that was a original press. This is a repress, very nicely done, of course. Next, we have something that I was not aware of, honestly, until like the day that I bought this. I knew that it looked metal, but I didn't know what I was getting myself into. And had I looked at the back a little more, I guess I could have sort of figured it out. But we have the debut album from Lion's Heart. I believe it came out in '92. Sorry about the fucking glare. This came out on Music for Nations. And so, like I said, I'd never heard of this band before, but had I been really looking, if you look closely at the band photo back there, you got Steve Grimmett from Grim Reaper and Onslaught and cool stuff like that. So anyways, yeah, I did a Broken Case. Hey, what do you expect for $1? So yeah, I did a little bit of research after I bought it, and so Steve Grimmett started this band after he left Onslaught. You probably know he was with Onslaught for one decent album, and I guess he wanted to do, story goes, he wanted to do something more melodic and more of a commercial approach. So I could not tell you at all what this sounds like, but I love Steve Grimmett. Hopefully it's at least worth a listen. Yeah. You guys heard Lion's Heart? Let me know. This was an oddball find. I would never have expected to find this where I found it with all the stuff that I got. It's not something I see out and about all the time. We have the second release by Theater of Tragedy. I don't remember where these guys are from. Sorry, boobs. Yeah, I've listened to this band in the past a decent amount of times. I used to be really into, I don't want to just say doom death, but like the more melodic doom death and the more gothic type stuff, from the 90s. I really kind of grew really tired of that sound. These days, if I want to hear doom death, I want to hear something, the more primal, brutal, crusty doom death. Not the, the goth, cape-wearing doom death. But I used to really like this band and this album. To be honest, I can't talk too much about it because I really don't remember enough to really talk about it. But it is one, they are one of those bands, the kind of gothic, romantic doom death bands. You know what to expect, operatic, female vocals with a, kind of death metal male vocalist, lots of melody, sad sounding shit. So yeah, anyways, came out on Massacre Records in '96. It's kind of a cult classic, fan favorite album. Like I said, I did grow tired of that sound, but I'm stoked to listen to it again. It's been probably over 10 years. Next we have, I think the second or third album from this project. Don't quote me on that. Paul Di'Anno's Battle Zone with Feel My Pain. You probably know, who the fuck Paul Di'Anno is. He was the original singer in Iron Maiden. Yeah. After leaving Maiden, he's done a number of projects. None of them have been bad from what I've heard. Some are better than others. I like the first. He started a band called Killers. I have their first album, and I really liked that one. This one came out in... What year did this come out? I don't know. I think this one came out in mid-90s, so... from what I've heard, it's just kind of like a groove metal album. As to where the earlier releases from this project were not. But you know what so many metal bands were doing in the mid-90s? They wanted to sound like, Pantera and Machine Head and shit like that. And I think that's kind of the route that these guys went on this one. So, like I said, hopefully it's worth at least $1. I do like Paul Di'Anno. But yeah, I'm sure this is one of those albums that has aged terribly. But whatever. Now, speaking of Killers, I also found this Live at the Whiskey. Probably not a mandatory live album, but it could be pretty cool. This came out in 2000 on Spitfire Records. Never have heard this, but like I said, I do like the Di'Anno Killers stuff, so probably worth a listen, and then I'll take it from there. This one right here is a project that I believe I've heard of. I know I'm familiar with the dudes that are in this band, but I think I've heard of this project, but I've never heard any of it. They have, I think, 2 albums. Project in question is Ronda Nelly, formed by Bobby Ronda Nelly, who was a drummer, played in a lot of bands, played in Black Sabbath for, I believe, 1 album. What else did he do? He did some other noteworthy stuff, but I can't remember off the top of my head. Yeah, other than Ronda Nelly, his brother Teddy plays guitar on this album. James Lomenzo, who would go on to be in Megadeth for a little while, plays bass. Corey Davidson, who I'm not familiar with, keyboards. And what kind of excited me the most, Ray Gillen does vocals on this album. Ray Gillen is a phenomenal vocalist. He's not alive anymore. He died from AIDS in the 90s. Oh man, he could have been a huge fucking star. He was in Sabbath for a while, but he died before they could release an album with him, doing vocals. What you can find though is you can find some tracks from the Eternal Idol album with Ray Gillen on vocals, and they are fucking phenomenal. I highly recommend tracking those down if you can. Basically, I think he was in the band, and I think it was pre-Tony Martin, and they got Tony Martin after Ray died, or whatever, or after his health went downhill. But just a phenomenal vocalist. He also sings on the Badlands, the debut Badlands album, with Jakey Lee from Ozzy Osbourne solo band. So I recommend that as well. But I just think this dude could have done a lot of great things had he not tried to bang every woman in his path. But can you blame him, I guess, when they're throwing themselves at you? I don't know. What am I fucking talking about? I don't know anything about women. But yeah, Ronda Nelly, check it out. I haven't heard it. So anyways, that is the last of the dollar albums. Now I have a couple CDs that I paid more than $1 for. All cheap though. I've been so broke lately, it's fucking retarded. Oops, sorry. I'm not supposed to say that word. It's kind of hard to stop, not say a word that you've been using your whole life. But trying. So we have My Dying Bride with 34.788% complete. I fucking hate saying that. Came out on Peaceville Records back in '98. This album is known for being the worst My Dying Bride album. I would definitely argue with that though, because I like this album. The only bad thing I can say about it is it does have some duds, but it also has some brilliant fucking moments. It's not a doom death album. From what I remember, it's been a while since I've heard it, but there's no death metal on this. It's a pure doom album. A lot of experimentation, kind of like psychedelic-y gothic-y. It's very unique. They never did anything else like this. Not before, not after. So I don't know if the band themselves were disappointed with the outcome. I know the fans hated it. Some people like it. I like it. Like I said, it's got some duds, but if those duds weren't on there, it'd be, in my opinion, it'd be a fantastic album. That said, it's still very much worth getting. So track it down if you like My Dying Bride, or if you just like weird, kind of gothic-y, psychedelic-y doom. I also picked up the 1349 album from last year, the Infernal Pathway. This is a promo copy at one of my local record stores, so I got it very cheap. It's got a hole drilled in there, which sucks because it's a fucking digipack, so I can't replace it, or I can't... Anyways, got it cheap. I've always liked 1349, to be honest. I know they're, with the, black metal purists, they're uncool as fuck. I've always liked them. I don't exactly love everything they've ever done, but I do like some of their albums a lot. This album was great. I think this was... they've been on a pretty good roll lately. Their last few albums have all been really good. I think this one is as good as most of the stuff they've done, and it's not exactly just more of the same. They are doing some stuff on here that honestly I don't remember them ever doing. Like the debut track is just like total black thrash. It's total old school, thrash metal mixed with black metal, and it works really fucking well. I don't recall them ever doing that, ever really having any thrash influences. If anything, very little. And I think they do it very well. I'd actually like to see them do more of that. So I've only listened once, so I can't give like a too much of a rundown. But that's what stood out to me the most is the debut track, and it's in there a little bit after that. But it's just really good, like black thrash. Not the entire album, but when they do it, man, it really works. Next, we have La Muerte by Gorefest. There you have it. This album came out in 2005. Gorefest are a death metal band out of the Netherlands. Been around since the very early 90s. At the latest, maybe. I don't know if it was late 80s, early 90s. They were around a long time. I don't think they're active anymore. Don't quote me on that. Don't quote me on anything that I say. But I haven't heard anything from these guys in years. It's a good album, definitely a good album. Not their best. I don't think Gorefest... Oh, shit. Let me take that back. I was going to say I don't think Gorefest ever made a bad album. They kind of did, actually. They did kind of go down the kind of like death and roll groove, territory in the mid-90s. So they did have some missteps. Some people think those albums are all right. I can't get into them. Anytime a band does like a death and roll type shit, it's not going to be for me. Rarely. Some bands can pull it off. In my opinion, they couldn't. This album, if I remember it correctly, I want to say this is kind of like a comeback album. I want to say this is the first like pure death metal album they did after that kind of death and roll phase. Once again, I could be wrong, but it's a strong album. It's definitely better than that death and roll shit that they did. Not quite as good as their early stuff. And honestly, the album that came out after this is better, but it's still a very good album. Kind of middle of the road for them, but worth owning, worth listening to at least a few times. And last but not least, we have the second Nihil album. I think it came out in 2000, Black Seeds of Vengeance. Came out back when they were signed to Relapse Records. And I've been kind of reacquainting myself with early Nihil, since I never did have their first two albums until recently. I really never liked the first two albums, but since I've owned them and, I'm listening to them a little bit more, I'm really coming around to it. I've always liked Nihil, but I've always more been into like the mid period for them. But yeah, I'm digging those. I'm digging the first two albums a lot more than I ever have. So I've always liked Nihil, to be honest. I know they're another one of those bands that You know, they got popular, therefore, you know, they're not cool anymore. But fuck that. That shit doesn't mean anything to me. I've listened to them a long, long time. They are one of the earlier death metal bands, you know, I ever got into. And yeah, they've had a couple kind of missteps, but they've never done anything terrible by any means. They had an album out last year that's actually really good too. So, anyways, that's all I got. What do you guys think? Talk to me about music. Come pick up the Arckanum tape if you'd like a copy. Highly recommended. And yeah, anyways, thanks for stopping by. We'll talk soon, huh? Cheers.